That's right. Today, May 18th, we got 1 Kings 3, 2 Chronicles 1, Psalm 78, and 2 Thessalonians 2. We're going to go back to Kings, so it would be 1 Kings 3. And if you have been around a little while in the Christian faith, then you've probably heard of Solomon and his wisdom, and likely this instance here. And so it's not new, but I think it's one of those ones worth revisiting because even though there's parts of his life, as you get through Ecclesiastes later in the year and read, recognizing that he goes through a chunk of his life kind of going a little astray. The beginning, what we see here in 1 Kings 3, really good. And then the end. All right? And so the wisdom that he's going to ask for, he's going to write out in Proverbs and all these things, doesn't always apply to his life. And so, that's why we don't glorify or idolize the people of the Bible other than Jesus. He's the one to follow. He can have these prayers, he can do some good things here, and yet he's like you and I, frail human who doesn't even follow his own good wisdom that he writes. And so it's not it doesn't matter kind of thing, but it's a warning, if you will. And it's not always how you start that matters, it's how you continue and how you finish that's important. So and even here, how he starts, maybe it's not so good. Chapter 3, made it a marriage alliance with Pharaoh, king of Egypt. He took Pharaoh's daughter and brought her into the city of David until he had finished building his own house and the house of the Lord and the wall around Jerusalem. Verse 3, Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of David his father. Only he sacrificed and made offerings at the high places. The king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, that was the great high place. Solomon used to offer 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, "Ask what I shall give to you." So he's going there to sacrifice into the high places because the temple is not finished. So this isn't that he's going to worship other gods at these high places. They set up altars at high places to worship the one true God. And so that's what's going on. And so here at Gibeon, God's going to come to him in a dream by night and says, "Ask, what shall I give you?" Imagine that. God comes to you and says, "What shall I give you?" And Solomon said, verse 6, "You have shown great and steadfast love to your servant David, my father, because he walked before you in faithfulness and righteousness and in uprightness of heart toward you. You have kept for him this great and steadfast love, and given him a son to sit on his throne this day. And now, O Lord, my God, you have made your servant king in place of David my father. Though I am but a little child, I do not know how to go out or come in. And your servant is in the midst of your people whom you have chosen, a great people, too many to be numbered or counted for multitude. Give your servant, therefore, an understanding mind to govern your people, that I may discern between good and evil. For who is able to govern this great people?" He just wants to lead well. So that's what he asks for. He said, "God, you've been so good. And you've been good to me, you've been good to my father. And I'm just like a child, and how in the world can I do this job?" Maybe you feel that way sometimes. How in the world can I do this? How is it even possible for me to lead this family? How is it possible for me to fill in the blank? Notice what Solomon asks for. Give your servant, good way to talk about ourselves. Therefore, an understanding mind to govern your people, to discern between good and evil. An understanding mind. Lord, help us have an understanding about situations we find ourselves in so that we know the good from the evil from the good. That we recognize, and Lord, there's a discernment that happens in our heart and minds because we're connected to the vine and we're filled with the Spirit. we have that advantage. We have that possibility. So we're not asking you to fill us. We're not asking to be like Solomon and write all these things, but we're asking God for discernment and understanding in situations that we find ourselves in. And maybe the key in all those, for us at least, is going to prayer a little more before those decisions. So the Lord was pleased, verse 10, that Solomon asked this, and God said to him, because you have asked this, and have not asked for yourself long life or riches or the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself understanding to discern what is right, behold, I now do according to your word. Behold, I give you a wise and discerning mind, so that none like you has been before, and none like you shall arise after you. I give you also what you have not asked, both riches and honor, so that no other king shall compare with you all your days. And if you will walk in my ways, keeping my statutes and my commandments, as your father David walked, then I will lengthen your days. And so the rest of the chapter then becomes the opportunity for him to put this to the test. Right? These two women come, and there's a baby, and it's dead, and what are we going to do? Well, that's my baby, it's not your baby. And God gives him the discerning mind to get to the heart of the matter, to solve the mystery. Notice verse 28. And all Israel heard of the judgment that the king had rendered, and they stood in awe of the king, because they perceived that the wisdom of God was in him to do justice. Right? They're impressed by Solomon, but they understand that where he gets the information from is from God. That's what we want. We want to point people to the Lord. Till next time, keep growing little by little.